In Whiskey, the wind didn't whisper. It hissed. It clung to soot and ash, twisted through caved-in homes and charred fence posts, carrying stories no one dared speak aloud. This wasn't just weather. This was the memory of a town that refused to forget. Ethan Cole stood where a home once stood. The morning sun painted dull gold over a ruin of smoke-blackened timbers and melted window frames. What had once been a modest home was now a jagged skeleton of scorched wood and brick. The air still reeked of smoke and something fouler, a coppery tang of fear and betrayal that refused to fade. Beneath his boots, the soil was scorched black. He shifted his weight, careful not to step on anything fragile. Amid the ash lay the remnants of lives, the bent frame of a child's tricycle, a charred photograph still clutched in a melted frame, and near what used to be the bedroom, a single scorched child's shoe peeked out like a whisper from the dead. The house had gone up in flame the night before. Neighbors said they heard a scream, saw the sky bloom orange, but none had gotten close enough to help. Only Ethan had. He'd waded through fire to pull the boy out. Little Micah, 8 years old, had clawed his way to the edge of a broken window before passing out. Ethan had found him by pure instinct, not in the bedroom, but under a collapsed bookshelf in the hallway. His tiny body curled like a paper crane ready to crumble. Clara, the mother, had been found unconscious near the bedroom doorway, burns covering her arms, smoke thick in her lungs. They were alive, barely. Now, the crowd had thinned, leaving behind only char and questions. Ethan kneeled, brushing ash aside to uncover what remained of a desk. The top drawer had been forced open, not burned. Forced. Inside. A thin outline where papers used to lie. Files were missing. He narrowed his eyes. The fire hadn't started randomly. It had climbed with purpose, from the front porch to the back hallway, accelerating with a suspicious trail. Someone had used an accelerant, kerosene. He knew the smell. He stood, brushing ash from his hands, and looked toward the hills. Something about the scene itched at the back of his skull, like a memory trying to wake up. By midday, the town was humming with the sound of gossip. Whiskey didn't have a courthouse or a paper, but word of mouth was faster than both. The saloon was full, the general store silent with listening ears, and outside the sheriff's office, a single letter waited on Ethan's desk. No envelope, just a slip of paper with one hurried line, "She's trouble, and so are you." Ethan turned the note over. Nothing on the back, just the paper's edge singed slightly, not by fire, but by deliberate heat, as if someone had pressed it close to flame. He placed it beside another one that had arrived at the mayor's office with a crude sketch of the burned house. Attached to it was a falsified confession. The writing was a poor imitation of Ethan's, but enough to cast doubt. Just enough. The mayor, a soft-spoken man with trembling hands, called Ethan in that afternoon. "This is temporary. You understand?" "Oh, so?" he said. Ethan looked out the window. "No, it's not. It's calculated. We can't take chances. People are nervous. They should be." The badge came off quietly. Ethan placed it on the table. "Let me know when you find your spine." He walked out without waiting for a reply. Deputy Billy was waiting at the edge of town. He was a boy still barely 23, with sandy hair and eyes too honest for whiskey. But he was loyal. That mattered more than anything now. "Micah's awake," Billy said, "and Clara still unconscious. Doctors say she might come out of it soon." Ethan nodded. "Don't tell anyone what Micah says." "Not yet." Billy looked uneasy. They're saying you did this, that you were too close to her. Ethan smiled coldly. Let them talk. Truth has a longer fuse than lies, but when it burns, it explodes. He drove west. The abandoned church was half swallowed by prairie. Ivy curled through shattered windows, and the bell tower had long since collapsed. But Ethan knew its secrets. Years ago, it had been a meeting place for railroad men and speculators, a quiet spot away from watchful eyes. Inside, dust shimmered in golden beams. Ethan moved to the rear confessional and pried open a hidden compartment. Inside was a rusted tin can wrapped in oilcloth, Clara's hiding place. She'd been smart enough to not trust her home. Inside the can were copies of land transfer forms, maps with markings along the southern ridge, and Clara's own notes all pointing to Ray Merton, the richest man in whiskey, and, more importantly, the man whose land deal was set to triple in value if Clara and a few other names disappeared from the registry. She'd found the truth, and someone had tried to kill her for it. At the clinic, Micah sat in a hospital bed, his face pale and bandaged, his eyes distant. When Ethan entered, the boy blinked once, then looked down. "I'm not going to let anyone hurt you again," Ethan said gently. Micah didn't speak. "Did you see who hurt your mama?" A long pause, then a slow nod. He had a beard, big, smelled like bad whiskey and smoke. Mama said his name, Carl. Ethan's spine stiffened. Carl, owner of the town saloon, member of the town council, friendly, powerful, dangerous. A memory surfaced Carl lighting a cigar outside the saloon 2 nights ago, joking with Ray. That smell, cigar smoke, kerosene, a handshake too firm, a smile too quick. It was him, that night. Ethan parked near Merton's land and watched from a copse of trees. 3 figures stood near the barn under cover of darkness. Ray Merton, Carl, and a third man. Ethan squinted. The third man was heavy-set, balding. He recognized him from a past file, Price, a former county surveyor fired for misconduct in Bridgewater. 3 men, 3 footprints at the scene. One motive: greed. Ethan followed them. They returned to the abandoned church, inside the moonlit ruins. Ray's voice echoed, "She's not dead." "In a coma," Carl growled. "But the boy, he's awake." Price paced. "We need to finish this. Burn her papers. Silence the boy. And the sheriff." "Sheriff's suspended," Carl muttered. "He's out." But Ethan was already inside, hidden behind the altar, recorder on. Then another figure stepped from the shadows. Clara, pale, weak, but alive, and holding a second recorder. Carl saw her first. "You!" He lunged. She fired, 1 shot to the thigh. He dropped. Ray reached for a knife. Ethan stepped out, gun raised. "Try it," he said coldly. They froze. "Let's end this nice and legal," Ethan said, tossing cuffs toward Clara. She caught them with shaking hands. "Let's..." At dawn, the prisoners sat cuffed beside Ethan's truck. The sky glowed soft rose, the wind silent now. Clara sat beside her son, cradling him close. Ethan watched the rising sun, hands folded. His coat was torn. Smoke clung to his clothes, but in his eyes burned something stronger than rage. Conviction. Clara spoke first. "They would have killed us." He nodded, "and tried to burn the truth with you." She looked at him. "Why did you believe me?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He looked toward the town just beginning to stir. "Because someone has to believe the people, no one else will." She watched him, her eyes softening. "When this is over, would you stay a while with us?" Ethan met her gaze not with the sharp eyes of a sheriff, but the quiet steadiness of a man who had found something worth protecting. "I'd like that," he said. Later that day, in the quiet back room of the clinic, Clara tended to the wounds Ethan had collected: a gash on his arm, bruises along his ribs. Her hands moved gently, but her touch lingered, her breath catching when their eyes met. "You're always walking into fire," she whispered. Ethan chuckled softly. "Only when someone's still inside." She finished wrapping his arm and leaned back, her eyes shimmering with exhaustion, with relief, and something more. He reached out, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. "You saved us last night." "So did you," she said, voice barely above a breath. They sat in silence, the air thick with everything they hadn't said. Then she laid her head against his shoulder, and he didn't move. For once. There was no need to. In the days that followed, Clara began walking more steadily, her strength returning. Ethan stayed near, helping where he could, fixing her fence, restocking her pantry, quietly ensuring no one else came near to finish what Carl and his men had started. One afternoon, Micah brought Ethan a drawing, the three of them standing in front of the old house, unburned and whole. Clara watched from the doorway, eyes damp. That night, as they sat on the porch beneath a bruised purple sky, Clara whispered, "I never thought I'd feel safe again." "You're not alone," Ethan said, voice low. A pause. Then she reached out and took his hand. They said nothing more. They didn't need to. In whiskey, the wind doesn't whisper. It remembers. And sometimes, it howls for justice. End of episode 3. Subscribe for more stories from Whiskey Town.